What can I say about taxes? Obviously, there's quite a lot to say about taxes. But I think fundamentally there's two or three points that I'd like to highlight this morning. One, of course, is that there is a most definite need to state the obvious, for collaboration between the Pacific Island countries. The reality is that a number of the Pacific Island countries have limited resources. We are very small jurisdictions. The economies of scale do not necessarily exist. And therefore it is very critical and indeed imperative that we share our resources. We share knowledge base, we share intelligence. That is very important. We are increasingly living in a globalized world. I was just told yesterday we have a CTO conference, Commonwealth Telecommunications Organization Forum, currently being held at Sheraton. And I was talking to the Minister for Communications, the Samoan Minister for Communications, and he was saying just recently, I understand 3 Chinese nationals got off the plane from Fiji into Samoa, and I think within 48 hours they were siphoning off information from people's ATM cards and machines, and I understand 2 of them have already been arrested. The 3rd one has made his way back to Fiji. Now, we do not necessarily know about that, unless of course you follow Samoan news. We earlier this year had a regional meeting of the Pacific Islands finance ministers and civil aviation ministers. This stemmed from the ADB annual meeting that was held in Frankfurt. So a few of us were there in Frankfurt and said it would be a good idea to perhaps get together and discuss and share information. A lot of them were interested in what we've done, for example, in the tax reforms in Fiji, and they wanted to know more about it. So we decided to have an informal gathering, and we did that at the Sofitel a few months ago. And on the back of that, we had the civil aviation ministers meeting too. So it was very good to have these back-to-back meetings. Yesterday, I was requested that maybe Fiji should also host a regional meeting of the communications ministers also. So we hope to have these back-to-back meetings. But the beauty about those 2 meetings we had was that there were no flags like you have. There were no formalities per se. But essentially just sitting around and having a talanoa session or a conversation, perhaps with a few bowls of grog in between. But the idea was to share information. It was very, very useful. From that, what we actually had was a joint statement that we took to ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organization in Montreal. I took it about 3 weeks ago, in respect of the carbon footprint from the civil aviation industry and how Pacific Island countries need to be treated differently. The point being is that from these informal meetings, we did not only have a number of initiatives that we identified that we could do together as a region and as different governments but coming together, but also the level of sharing and learning from each other and some of the challenges that we have. Now, I would assume that the similar issues does exist within the taxation area. And I think that is very critical for us to be able to learn from each other and be able to communicate with each other, have that level of communication. You need to be able to pick up the phone and call a counterpart in Samoa, or Tonga, or wherever the case may be, Tuvalu. Because we also do see that there's a lot of movement. There is a growing issue, in particular with the movement of people, of black economy. There was a World Bank study done of the Fijian economy back in 2006. The report came in 2007 that stated that about 1/3 of the value of our GDP was in the black. Now you can extrapolate from that and essentially see how much tax revenue we've actually lost out. So I think it's very critical for us to be able to have that level of sharing of information. Whilst we may differ in our strategies, nonetheless it is critically important to have that level of interaction. The other point that I think is also as tax people to be mindful of, and I think sometimes there's a bit of a delinking between the tax office and your ministries of, the ministries of foreign affairs, Ministry of Economy, or Ministry of Industry and Trade. In particular, when you're going to have bilateral agreements between countries, whether they're trade agreements, whether you have something like PACER Plus that is a hot topic at the moment. because ultimately these types of agreements, whether bilateral or multilateral basis, does have an impact on your ability to tax, or how much you tax and how you tax. We have different models. We have, for example, in Australia, compared to Fiji, relatively high levels of personal and corporate tax. Whereas in Fiji, it's the other way around. So there is a heavy reliance, if you like, not necessarily on a high level of taxation, but nonetheless a reliance on tariffs as a source of revenue. Now, so we have to be able to understand, and the tax departments tend to be sometimes, I think, fairly narrowly focused. So I think the tax officers need to take a wider interest in terms of what is happening in the wider economy, what is happening in terms of the relationships that may be being built, what some of the policies at the foreign level that's maybe being negotiated, to be able to sort of force your way a little bit into that and to have a bit of an input into that. I think generally what we have seen also in our experience, the tax people come very much later on in the piece, as opposed to having some input early on in the piece. And I think that makes a lot of difference, because then you're essentially seen as a nuisance value, that you have already, we've already done this nice diplomatic niceties, we've already negotiated it, and now the tax person comes along and is being a spanner in the works. And I think that's very, very critical. I mean, we found that similarly, for example, with civil aviation, you have these ASA agreements and air services agreements, and sometimes at the diplomatic level they have all these sort of exchanges, but in fact it may have a huge impact on the national carrier. So I think a similar situation does exist also with the tax departments. Compliance, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is very critical. If I could share a little bit of our experience. In Fiji, of course, we brought down the tax rates, the corporate tax rate to 20%. The income tax threshold in Fiji only a few years ago for personal income tax was about $8,600 a year, whereby you got taxed, and the first rate was 15%. We increased the income tax threshold from 8,600 to 16,000, and the first rate was 7%, which has decreased quite significantly. But what we've also seen in many quarters, there has been a greater compliance. So whilst there are projections of a decrease in revenue, because the tax rates have come down, in particular with company tax, we see greater compliance. But I mean, I have to sort of preface that by saying the fact is that the economy has been growing well too. So I don't think there's been any sort of studies done around what percentage of it has been specifically because of the fact the economy has been growing, or what percentage is because of the compliance issue. So that's something that we need to look at also from the Fijian perspective. But nonetheless, we get a lot of feedback saying that, well, there's no point sort of doing some adventurous accounting or going out and meeting and paying lots of money for people to do that for you. On the other hand, of course, I think one which is a bit of a passion of mine is that the tax officers need to understand the taxpayers are your customers. They're your clients. They're not somebody who go around with a sledgehammer and deal with. And unfortunately, I think, and again, I want to talk about the Fijian experience. I'm not saying they do it all the time, but there are also instances where they do it where it's not necessary to do so. Because there are a lot of people who are non-compliant. There are a lot of people who do try and avoid. Like I said, we had a valuation done, about a third of the value of the economy was in the black. Hopefully the situation has improved. We have not had a study since then. But the fact of the matter is there's still some very good people who do want to pay taxes. There's still some people who do want to actually have a plan with you in order to be able to pay the taxes, where they may have inadvertently overlooked things, and it can be proven quite easily when people do it inadvertently or are unaware of it, but are willing to pay it, but they need a plan to do so, for example. We have also had feedback where some of the tax officers, in particular outside of Suva, go out and approach companies and get them to force them to pay, or threaten them with all sorts of things, saying, look, I need to do this because I need to meet my budget. That is not a very good reason for me as a taxpayer to pay just because the officer wants to meet his budget. So I think that mindset needs to be there. We need to ensure that we partner with the taxpayers. There are, of course, those who don't want to partner with you and go to them with a sledgehammer. There's no problem with that. But invariably, you'll find that 95% of people do actually want to pay the taxes. They do want you to have an understanding of their situation. Equally, I think what is happening is, given the level, the complexity of transactions, the complexity of how companies are also set up. I think some jurisdictions are experiencing it now, they're more the coalface of that. And to have the officers well trained in those areas, and maybe that's where PIFTEC does come into it. I think that's very, very critically important for your officers to understand, knowing how to read a balance sheet, knowing what gearing is. Understanding the modern day commercial transaction, I think, is very, very important. In the same way, previously when the police used to deal with white collar crime, it was somebody physically giving you money, as opposed to people giving you money without money being given physically. So, I mean, these are some of the, I suppose, the modern day issues that people do need to deal with. I think, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, given the fact that it is a regional organization, we'd like to also, of course, thank World Bank, IMF, and the other multilateral agencies, and those who also contributed bilaterally to the knowledge base that has been increasing because of the assistance, because of the training that has been provided. And I would urge you, now that you're going to have a permanent secretariat set up, to take more advantage of that, to be able to ensure that the funds that you get into the organization channel for the right use. That is very important to have that level of accountability and transparency, because you'll find you'll get more assistance from that. But also like to thank them for the assistance that has been rendered so far. We, of course, in Fiji have done a tax right, if you like, of consolidating all the tax amendments, etc. Professor Burns has been here with us. He's been giving us that assistance. We're very grateful for that, and like to acknowledge him publicly for that assistance. It's very interesting. We are currently doing a consolidation of all the laws in Fiji that has not been done since 1985. So it's a huge, massive exercise. We have used the services now. We're paying close to nearly $2 million to LexisNexis of Australia to help us with the consolidation. We have had the Solicitor General's team, all the lawyers working 24/7 to meet the deadlines. And but you'll see it brings about a huge improvement, not just in terms of understanding the law, not specifically pertaining to taxes, but overall. And I think that it's very important to do that and be quite proud of what is happening. And it will be available online, and we hope to have it launched in November. But once you get onto that, once you have somebody like LexisNexis doing it for you, any amendments can be done at any point in time, and it's very easy to get it done. As those of you who come from jurisdictions where you actually take that for granted, whereas in our jurisdiction we don't. But hopefully now, very soon, they will take it for granted. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think again, as I was saying to the lady from Papua New Guinea, the tax office, and also Vish from FERCA, that one of the things we found generally in terms of services, that the expectations of our citizens is increasing all the time. It's increasing all the time. In Fiji, up till 2007, 2008, for example, we had only one mobile phone company, one landline company, and one international gateway. We liberalized it using the technical assistance of some mediators from World Bank in 2008-9. We today now have very, very good call rates compared to what they were previously. We have things like you're paying 5 cents for a text message, whereas previously, only a few years ago, it was 50 cents. We have things like 7-Up and 5-Up. But if you talk to the young people and try and contextualize to them, they actually don't want to know. They don't understand that. Because as far as they know, the moment they start getting phone calls or start owning a phone, they didn't know any of that. They were getting the 5-Up and the 7-Up and the 5 cents, text messaging cost. They want to know how much cheaper it can get now, even further from that. So the level of expectations of our citizens is changing. even in the Pacific. No matter how remote an island would be, you would have relatives that may be experiencing a particular type of health service, a particular type of taxation experience in Australia and New Zealand that may be far more refined, that may be far more mature than what we have. So their levels of expectation would be that we deliver the same type of services in Fiji, in Samoa, in Tonga, wherever we come from the Pacific. So I think there is a need to understand that. There's a need to also understand that the level of technology and the speed at which it is, reaching our shores, and how people have taken the uptake of it is very, very important for us to also understand that. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you well in your deliberations. I think there is enormous opportunities in the, of course, tax area in terms of how we can modernize ourselves, how we deal with our customers. It is also quite, critical, as Pacific Islanders, to ensure that we are able to share that information, share that knowledge. We're quite happy from the Fijian perspective to offer our services, whether you want access to our laws, whether you want to have access to our ministry or FERCA. I understand you've done some placements too. And I think, once we're able to do that also, we then aren't seen as some kind of last frontier where some, frontier type activities do take place. And we need to get rid of that image that the law is weak and therefore somebody can come and actually carry out a breach without us actually picking up on it. Corruption, of course, is very, very important. We were very, very decisive about it. We set up a independent corruption commission. We have unreservedly ratified the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC. We have also put ourselves up for the peer review program, and so we get constantly reviewed. In fact, now we have been asked to review other countries. Recently we reviewed Timor-Leste. So generally the way the reviews take place, you have a first world country, and a developing country. So the last group that reviewed us was from, I think it was USA and Bangladesh. I understand, are getting another group coming in next year. So I think it is very important to have, also with your home countries, to be able to push your governments to ensure that they have those types of adherence, that they're able to comply with those international standards, because international benchmarking is very, very critical, and it makes it a lot more attractive. I'd just like to just round off by talking about this one particular issue. We have, you have credit reporting now, of course, because with modernization, banks need to know who's a good creditor and who's not, who pays up their debts and who doesn't. And so we had one company that set up this initiative, and they would, for a fee, keep your credit information, and for a fee also impart with that information. So we had people, for example, who may have a particular debt issue. They don't pay the sort of hire purchase repayments on time. The hire purchase company can actually say Mr. X has not paid his hire purchase payments, so it's there. So next time when Mr. X goes along to buy a television set, his name is there. So what it was beginning to be used as a leverage for you to pay off the previous debt. That is not the whole purpose of that. And what we also found, because there were no rules around it, sometimes you may pay off the debt, but your name does not get off the list. People were being reported for owning only $20. You had sometimes a genuine complaint where a person was not going to pay for the services because the services actually weren't rendered in the first place. So for example, a typical case was, I've signed up for a plan to get internet services for the next 6 months. I get it for the first 3 months, but the next 3 months I don't get it, but they still bill me for it. There's something wrong with the cable or what have you. So we had instances where people were, whilst they were disputing the actual payment, whether they should pay or not, some low-ranking accounts clerk decided to report that person to the credit bureau. Long and behold, next time he goes to buy something, he can't buy it. So he's then forced to pay that particular debt when he should not be actually paying for it. Anyway, the long and short of it is that we essentially put in place a law that scrapped all the records. We said we'll start afresh, and we have very transparent rules now And as a result of that, we are now seeing some international players who actually want to come and participate in the credit reporting sector, or segment of the financial sector in any case. So I think by having those rules, one of the things that we also found was that it was those people at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale who were getting marginalized. Because somebody may owe $50, they get reported, but they don't necessarily have the right connections, so their names don't get off the list. Whereas those who do have the connections may have defaulted, their names get off the list. So by having transparent rules, it creates a lot more confidence in the market, it invites new players into the market. And I think similarly, the taxation officers do play a very critical role. With the manner in which you dispense with your duties in applying the law and having good practice notes, having good practice directions, and consistency in decision making will also make your countries, make your jurisdictions attractive destinations both for business and investment locally and also from offshore. So thank you once again for the invitation. I wish you a very good forum, and I wish Peter, of course, all the best. We're here to render all our assistance to you. And I wish you a good afternoon, Vinaka. Thank you very much.